They are the ultimate symbol of military power. Since the Second World War, aircraft carriers have allowed a country to project force far beyond its shores. Only a few countries currently operate these massive ships. But now, Turkey could be set to join this exclusive group, but in a different form. Although technically not an aircraft carrier in the traditional sense, Turkey is constructing an amphibious assault ship that can field attack helicopters and combat UAVs. The TCG Anadolu will be part of Turkey's naval strategy that looks to counter maritime threats, both near its coasts and further out at sea. Over the past several years, Turkey has seen heightened tensions close to its shores, from clashes in the Black Sea over Crimea to disputes in the Aegean and the energy-rich Eastern Mediterranean. So does Turkey need an aircraft carrier as part of its naval strategy? And what role could it play in safeguarding Turkey's waters? And to answer this, I'm joined now from Ankara by Turkish defense analyst Arda Mevlutoglu, and in Washington, D.C. is Michael Fabey. He is the America's naval reporter for Defense Intelligence Agency, JANS. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Arda, could you talk to us about Turkey's TCG Anadolu amphibious assault ship? What role it will play in Turkey's navy?
Thank you. As the name implies, TCG Anadolu is an amphibious assault ship, which literally means a ship that supports amphibious assaults. Those types of ships are able to carry marine infantry as well as their equipment, their vehicles, their supplies to overseas deployment areas or operational areas. So such ships, literally called, or in terminology, they're called LHDs or LHAs. Such ships are important assets of power projection. Those types of ships are able to project power in terms of soldiers, in terms of military equipment, military power, as well as humanitarian supplies and humanitarian relief operations.
So,
therefore,
yes, please continue.
Therefore, such ships are of strategic and also diplomatic importance for regional powers such as Turkey.
So, Michael, are these types of smaller and cheaper amphibious ships replacing aircraft carriers? Is the trend changing nowadays?
Around the world, it is a little bit. In the United States, we have a little bit of a different situation going on. There is an argument about how many carriers we need, but also the Marine Corps is going through a whole big revamp, and they're starting to rethink how they use these large-scale amphibious ships.
Okay, so Arda, we know that although the TCG Anadolu isn't technically an aircraft carrier, Turkish defense officials have said obtaining an aircraft carrier is on the country's agenda. Why does Turkey need them?
An aircraft carrier has been on the agenda since late 90s, especially after the Bosnia and Kosovo operations, and later conflicts and crises in and around the geography of Turkey, its close neighborhood, showed that Turkey needs to be able to project power to different crisis zones or conflict areas, because Turkey's situation or Turkey's ambitions as being a regional power implies a presence in terms of military, in terms of economy, finance, trade, and also political presence in this geography. The Libya crisis, the recent Libya conflict also showed the importance of this. And as a result of this geopolitical situation which Turkey finds itself in, dictates a strong naval power in which an aircraft carrier, a light aircraft carrier at least, or an amphibious assault ship of this kind is a very important asset.
So the U.S. has been the dominant carrier power since the end of the Second World War, but now there seems to be a new challenger emerging, namely China. Recent satellite images show that they were constructing a new, more advanced carrier. How dangerous is this rivalry between the two countries, especially when it comes to carriers, given the tensions over Taiwan and the South China Sea?
So the possibility of escalation over in the Western Pacific is heightened now with carriers' plans by China. There's no doubt about that. Right now, China plans on developing kind of a fleet of carriers, and it mostly involved in the Western Pacific. And as you know, the U.S. has held its way over there. operate as carriers almost at will where it wanted to. And so this is going to present a problem for both countries as they try to figure out which seas they can operate in safely and also carry out their missions.
So how effective are aircraft carriers for you, Michael? I mean, some say that they're already obsolete. Do you agree?
Not at all. I mean, first of all, you've had the operations that haven't resolved. Carrier operations are still doing raids and everything else like that in the Middle East. But on top of that, as noted earlier, it's this presence piece. It's this piece of protecting trade and economic interests all around the world. That this is what the U.S. uses carriers for. It uses the carriers to make sure those trade lanes, those economic lanes remain open, not only for the U.S., but for other countries as well, international waters.
So, Arda, some critics suggest that the advanced precision missiles made aircraft carriers giant floating targets. Would you agree that? Because recent images show that China was using mock-ups of U.S. aircraft carriers as target practice. What's your take on that? And we also know that China is developing anti-carrier missiles, right?
First of all, yes and no. At the same time, yes, aircraft carriers are big floating targets for precision missiles, and we have seen very significant developments in the missile area by Russia, by China. And yes, aircraft carriers are big targets. But at the same time, aircraft carriers do not operate by themselves. They usually operate with a number of ships around themselves in carrier strike groups or carrier battle groups. Those are small flotillas supported by different types of surface warships, support ships, and in addition, submarines. Those ships provide area air defense against missiles, against enemy aircraft, and other ships and submarines. So yes, aircraft carriers and large strategic ships such as supply ships or large destroyers are big targets, but at the same time, defensive countermeasures and defense systems are being developed also.
So, Michael, what's your take on that? I mean, are carriers vulnerable?
I agree with everything was just said, and I'd like to point out that carriers have always been vulnerable. There've always been the kind of weaponry out there to take out carriers. But as noted, they have this flotilla of ships around the carrier strike groups. They move. They have all kinds of defense measures. And ultimately, it's the ultimate tripwire, too. There's a sense of who wants to try to take out a carrier if you could. You've started a war for them.
So, Michael, just to continue with you, what do you make of the latest discussions at the U.S. Congress, where some members defend the removal of U.S. aircraft carriers from the Navy's inventory and suggest the construction of smaller drone carriers, maybe similar to that of Turkey? Is the U.S. taking up the idea of drone carriers now?
I don't think there's anything about drone carriers as much as just having fleets of drone ships out there. There's the old maxim that one of the first things U.S. presidents say is, where are the carriers? I don't see a day where they'll say, where are the drone ships? There's something about the carriers going out there. There's a sense of message warfare, if you will. Nothing brings to force what a carrier brings. And so far, every attempt in Congress, and there have been several through the years now, has just met with absolute disarray in the end and trying to get any carrier programs killed. And I think that will be the case for some time to come. Plenty of studies have showed that carriers are the best return on investment, by the way.
So, Arda, what would you like to say? I mean, if it happens, how could it impact the power balance in the Western Pacific while the U.S. is confronting China?
Well, there are some very interesting developments going on in the Asia-Pacific region. China has 2 aircraft carriers operational and building the 3rd. Japan is converting its amphibious assault ship into an aircraft carrier, whereas South Korea is also working on another aircraft carrier, and those are without doubt being supported by U.S. carrier battle groups. So there is a very significant competition going on, and if such escalation occurs, which I hope not, it will be a conflict between those aircraft carrier battle groups, and it will be an important test of the modern naval tactics and strategies.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.